What if learning graphic design today completely changed the way you see the world around you? Not because you suddenly become an artist, but because after a few months, something unexpected begins to happen. You stop looking at logos, websites, advertisements, product packaging, and even street signs the way everyone else does. You start seeing invisible decisions hidden inside them. The question is, how does someone go from knowing absolutely nothing about design to thinking like a professional designer? This is that journey. On the first day, the excitement is real. You install your first design software, maybe it's Photoshop, maybe Illustrator, maybe Figma. The icon sits on your desktop like the entrance to a completely new world. You open it. Within seconds, the excitement collides with confusion. There are panels everywhere, layers, artboards, vector paths, masks, guides, grids, hundreds of tiny buttons with names that mean absolutely nothing yet. You just wanted to make something that looked good. Instead, you spend 20 minutes trying to move the wrong layer. Then you choose a font. Actually, you choose 15. Nothing looks right. You try brighter colors, then darker ones. You add shadows because shadows seem professional, then gradients, then glowing effects. Somehow, every change makes the design feel even worse. It's frustrating because you know what good design looks like. You just have no idea how people actually create it. Most beginners assume they're missing creativity, but that's almost never the real problem. They're missing a way of seeing, and that difference changes everything. By the end of the first week, the software no longer feels like a maze. You know where the basic tools are. You can align objects without accidentally moving everything else. You understand that layers aren't your enemy, but the biggest change happens away from your computer. You're waiting for coffee when you notice the menu board. The spacing feels cramped. Later, you're scrolling through social media and pause for half a second longer than usual on an advertisement. Why? You don't know yet. Then you realize the headline grabbed your attention before the image did. On the way home, you notice two billboards standing next to each other. One is easy to read from a distance. The other is filled with tiny text. For the first time, you understand why one works and the other doesn't. Nobody taught you this directly. Your brain simply started paying attention. This surprises almost everyone. Learning graphic design doesn't begin by changing what you make. It begins by changing what you notice. Then another misconception quietly disappears. You hear people say that copying designs is bad, so you avoid it. Until an experienced designer explains something unexpected. Musicians learn by playing existing songs. Painters recreate masterpieces. Writers imitate styles before developing their own voice. Design works the same way. You aren't copying to claim someone else's work. You're copying to understand invisible decisions. Why is this image placed here? Why does this font feel trustworthy? Why is there so much empty space? Every recreation becomes less about imitation and more about observation. And observation turns out to be one of the most valuable creative skills you'll ever develop. Around the first month, something finally clicks. You redesign one of your earliest projects. You don't add more effects. You actually remove things. Suddenly, the design looks dramatically better. Not because you've mastered the software, because you've discovered hierarchy. You realize that not every element deserves equal attention. Some information should shout, some should whisper, some should simply support everything else. Typography stops feeling like choosing pretty fonts. You begin understanding that every typeface carries a personality. Some feel modern, others feel traditional, some communicate confidence, others communicate elegance. Choosing the wrong font isn't just an aesthetic mistake, it's a communication mistake. The same revelation happens with color. At first, color theory feels overwhelming. Complementary colors, analogous colors, saturation, contrast. Then you notice something almost embarrassingly simple. Most effective designs don't use dozens of colors. They use a small, intentional palette. Consistency starts outperforming complexity. And then there's spacing, the invisible ingredient beginners rarely notice. You start nudging objects a few pixels farther apart. The design suddenly breathes. Nothing new was added, only space. That's when you discover one of graphic design's greatest paradoxes. Good design often isn't about what you include. It's about what you're willing to leave out. This realization changes your work forever. But another challenge appears almost immediately. You can now make attractive layouts. Can you solve problems? That's the question waiting for you around the third month. Something subtle happens. The software fades into the background. You stop thinking, which tool should I use? Instead, you start asking, what is this design supposed to accomplish? A restaurant poster isn't trying to impress other designers. It's trying to bring hungry people inside. A charity website isn't trying to show off beautiful gradients. It's trying to build trust quickly. A product package has only a few seconds to convince someone standing in a crowded store. Every project suddenly becomes a communication puzzle. This shift separates decoration from design. One makes things prettier, the other makes messages clearer. Professional designers spend surprisingly little time asking whether something looks cool. They're far more interested in whether it works. Around this stage, you begin creating portfolio projects, not fake masterpieces, realistic challenges. A coffee shop needs a new visual identity, a fictional nonprofit needs social media graphics, a local event needs posters, a mobile app needs onboarding screens. None of these clients exist, but the problems do. And solving believable problems teaches skills that random practice rarely develops. Then comes feedback. At first, feedback feels personal. Someone says the layout feels crowded. You hear? You're not talented. Someone questions your typography. You wonder if you should quit. But after enough critiques, something changes. Feedback stops attacking your identity. It starts improving your decisions. You will discover mistakes you would never have noticed alone. Growth accelerates, not because your designs become perfect, because your blind spots become smaller. 6 months into the journey, you're no longer thinking in isolated graphics. You're thinking in systems. This is where branding enters the story. You once believed a brand was just a logo. Now you understand that a logo is only one piece of a much larger picture. Colors remain consistent across every platform. Typography creates familiarity. Photography follows a recognizable style. Icons speak the same visual language. Every decision supports the same personality. A strong identity doesn't rely on constant reminders. People simply recognize it. Then another distinction becomes important. Designing for print feels different from designing for screens. Paper has physical limitations. Screens respond to interaction. What looks beautiful on a monitor may fail completely when printed. What works perfectly on a poster may become unreadable on a phone. Design isn't universal. Context matters. User experience starts influencing your thinking as well. Buttons should feel obvious. Navigation should reduce confusion. Information should appear when people need it, not when the designer wants to show it. You begin realizing that beautiful interfaces can still be frustrating. Likewise, simple interfaces can quietly become unforgettable. Somewhere during these months, opportunities begin appearing. A friend asks if you can design a flyer. A local business needs social media graphics. A community organization wants help with an event poster. Maybe you accept, maybe you don't feel ready. Either way, the experience teaches something impossible to learn from tutorials. Real clients change their minds. Deadlines exist, budgets vary. Communication matters almost as much as design itself. Some projects go smoothly, others don't. That's normal. Building experience rarely follows a straight line. After 1 year, the transformation becomes difficult to ignore. Not because every project is amazing, because your decisions finally have reasons behind them. You don't center everything automatically anymore. You understand when balance should feel symmetrical and when it shouldn't. You don't randomly increase font sizes. You guide attention intentionally. Contrast becomes a tool instead of an accident. White space becomes part of the composition instead of empty space waiting to be filled. Most importantly, you're no longer guessing, you're making choices. That confidence didn't arrive overnight. It came from hundreds of small decisions, failed experiments, redesigns, critiques, and revisions. By now, your portfolio tells a story. Maybe it includes personal passion projects, maybe volunteer work, maybe internship experience, maybe freelance projects completed for local businesses, maybe collaborative work with other creatives. Every designer's path looks different, and that's worth remembering. Getting your first professional opportunity depends on many factors beyond technical ability. Portfolio quality matters. Communication matters, networking matters, location matters. The demand in your market matters. Sometimes timing matters more than expected. Entry-level positions, internships, contract work, in-house teams, agencies and freelance opportunities all exist, but none are guaranteed. The strongest portfolio often belongs not to the person who knows the most software, but to the person who consistently solves real communication problems. Then something unexpected happens once again. The world starts becoming your classroom. A cereal box teaches packaging hierarchy. A train map teaches information design. A museum brochure teaches editorial layout. A mobile banking app teaches user experience. An election poster teaches visual persuasion. Even bad design becomes valuable, especially bad design, because every confusing sign, unreadable menu, or cluttered advertisement forces you to ask the same question. What could have been done better? By the second and third years, another decision begins shaping your future. You don't have to become good at everything, you can specialize. Some designers become experts in brand identity, helping companies define how they present themselves visually. Others focus on interface design, creating digital products that people use every day. Some thrive in marketing design, producing campaigns that communicate clearly across multiple platforms. Others fall in love with packaging, motion graphics, editorial publications, social media content, presentation design, or eventually guiding larger creative teams through creative direction. Specialization doesn't guarantee success. Markets change. Demand shifts. Competition exists everywhere. But developing deep expertise in a specific area often opens different kinds of opportunities than trying to do everything equally well. Experience compounds, so does a reputation. Communication skills become increasingly valuable. Clients and employers rarely remember every technical shortcut. They remember whether you understood the problem, whether you listened, whether you delivered thoughtful solutions, whether working with you made their job easier. Even income reflects this complexity. Graphic designers can earn modestly or exceptionally well, depending on experience, location, specialization, industry, business skills, and the kinds of clients they serve. There is no universal number, only countless individual journeys, and somewhere along the way, perhaps without realizing it, you've stopped identifying yourself by the software you use. Software keeps changing. New tools appear. Old ones disappear. Artificial intelligence accelerates certain tasks. Workflows evolve, but the underlying principles remain surprisingly stable. Hierarchy, contrast, balance, alignment, rhythm, clarity, empathy, visual communication. Those ideas outlast every application you'll ever install. So let's return to the question we started with. What happens if you learn graphic design today? Yes, you'll eventually become faster with tools. You'll build projects, you'll make mistakes, you'll improve through practice, feedback, patience, and persistence. You may find opportunities through personal projects, volunteer work, internships, freelance clients, or full-time roles if your skills, portfolio, communication, and circumstances align. But none of those are the biggest transformation. The biggest transformation is almost invisible. You stop seeing the world as a collection of images. You start seeing it as a collection of decisions. Every advertisement becomes a lesson in persuasion. Every logo becomes a lesson in identity. Every package becomes a lesson in attention. Every website becomes a lesson in usability. Every billboard becomes a lesson in hierarchy. Every interface becomes a lesson in human behavior. And without ever noticing the exact moment it happened, you realize you didn't just learn graphic design. You learned an entirely new way to see the world, and once you see it, you can never look away.